building our future. Ataanza rasmi jijini Mombasa chini ya kauli mbiu ya Knowledge and Ummah Building Our Future. Ataanza kutoa muhadhara wa live podcast siku ya Alhamisi ya tarehe 15 ya Februari katika studio za Alhajara. Siku ya Ijumaa ya tarehe 16, Sheikh Mustafa atatoa hutuba ya Ijumaa katika msikiti wa Masjid Yusuf Migadini kule, na baada al
feel what has come up with our prophet, beloved prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On behalf of Haajar TV, I'm taking this opportunity to welcoming our Sheikh. This is you are watching Haajar TV direct from Al-Huda Mosque, Sparky. So let us listen carefully to our Sheikh so that we can benefit what he has brought to us today, inshallah. Sheikh, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, before we begin, inshallah, for those who desire to stay behind, I sincerely advise you to come closer. Let's create a circle around. For those who do not want to stay behind, you can stay where you are, inshallah. It's a sunnah to come closer in a majlis. It's a sunnah to come closer in a majlis like this. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullahu khairan. I can see the young ones, they're literally far ahead compared to the adults. And that's a shame. That's quite embarrassing actually. If any of the adults are staying behind, inshallah, it will be an honor to have you around. Jazakumullahu anna kulla khair. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen, wa la udwana illa ala al-zalimin. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم ابسط علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا من حكمتك وافتح لنا فتوح العارفين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. آمين يا رب العالمين. Now, inshallah, we'll start straight away, but there's something that I want you to know. I can see, mashallah, there's a lot of youth on the right side, the right-hand side of mine, and there are adults on the left-hand side. So I don't know, should I make a competition between you two or what? Should there be a competition between the young ones and the adults? And let's see if the adults have been doing their job correctly and the young ones have been doing their job correctly as well by learning. Should we do that? That wouldn't be fair. That wouldn't be fair. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do, inshallah, this is how it's going to work. I will be talking, but to show that you're paying attention, I know majority of you, or maybe all of you, have not come with a pen and paper. All right? But I'm expecting your mind to be your database, because I might ask you some questions in regards to what we have over here, inshallah. Understood? Is that very clear? Especially young ones here. Is that very clear? Sijui nafahamika? Ama sieleweki? Barakallahu fikum. Okay. In our khutbah today, we mainly spoke about one issue which literally resonates with the majority of us, especially here in Mombasa or maybe Kenya widely. If you look at the generation that we have currently, especially the adults can understand this, and the young ones as well, of the youth, they might be able to a certain extent be able to resonate to what we spoke about. We did not mention this word to word, but we are going to cover about this now. Why do we have an existing generation, an ummah currently, and I'm talking specifically to the Muslims, no one else. I can resonate to you. I'm able to speak to you. It's the language that I understand easily, which you'll be able to understand. One of the reasons why you are close over here, so that your heart can be attentive and your mind can do what? Listen and focus to what is to be provided over here. Why do we have an ummah which in today's day and age, if you look at them, لا عامل للدنيا وينتج ولا عامل للآخرة فماذا؟ فيثاب. Why is this ummah in a position where the brothers and the sisters, the men and the women, are not in a position of producing? They're not producing anything. They're all in town. Some you find them on seats. Can you hear me clearly now? Much better? Barakallahu fikum. Okay. Why do we have an ummah of young ones today, from the age of 18 onwards? They are the same ones that you expect to be a part of this nation, but they are not the ones who are producing. They're not producing for their dunya, nor are they productive for their akhirah. We easily blame everyone. That's what we do. But none of us go to the core of the problem. So what we spoke about in the khutbah is literally looking at the current situation and where we stand as an ummah, and also trying to follow the nusus. One of the problems that we mentioned, إحدى من الأسباب التي ذكرناها حتى دخلنا في هذه الكارثة, until we are in this infliction that we are facing today, we said that مخالفة النصوص الشرعية, that we are not following the text of the Sharia. What are we not doing? What did I mention? We are not following the text of what? Sharia. Simply put. Now, you might be questioning, but yet we pray, we fast, we do ibadah and all of that. But then I asked a question, to what extent do our youth understand what they're doing? Or is it just cultural from the norms that they receive from home? But if you merely ask them about what they're doing, they have no idea exactly why they're doing it. They might say that they are praying, but you ask them the actual definition of salah, they have no idea of that. And more, to add more on that, to add salt on the insult, what do you find? Is that عدم وجود التربية. And we are going to focus on that from among the many things that we want to talk about. We said in the khutbah, inshallah, now we're going to try to at least, if not cover every single aspect of our lives, the political aspect, the also social aspect, the economic aspect. We're mostly going to look into the economic aspect to at least have a producing ummah. How do we understand that? Where do you and I stand? Where do we stand? Clearly, you need to understand that, first of all. And we have to open our minds and have an open heart and be able to understand and allow it to penetrate inside us. Without that, if you have any problem, you would dispute with it, the fact is going to remain as a fact. And it's something which is global, not only referred to this city alone, or maybe to this country. It's a problem which is global around the world, affecting everyone. Something that you need to know. I will not go to عدم وجود التربية first. These are solutions that we can look into and just tap into a little bit, but we can't really mention them as you expect. I want to bring you something which is not in our attention. We haven't looked into it at all. And this is because lack of knowledge. Simply put, the problems that we have today is lack of knowledge. Because I'll question this. What is a modern state? Start thinking. The reason why I want you to use your mind is this. What is a modern state? Okay? Now let's start breaking it down slowly. Before modern state, we mentioned, if you go back to the previous lectures that we had, whether in Nairobi or also in here in Mombasa, we mentioned a lot of things related to the stages that man went through. But we don't want to mention that anymore. We want to talk about the current situation we're in. We're in a state known as a modern state. When we mention that, we mean that the nation state that you are serving is a modern state. It's a modern phenomenon, built in the modern era. It's something that did not exist. How did people live? People lived in borderless lands. So people were able to travel from one city to the next, and they did not need any borders for them to survive. But today, if you want to leave from here, you want to go to a neighboring country like Uganda, you must go through a border with a passport to show that you are a citizen of what? A certain country. I wouldn't mention to you where does a state stand to each one of us. I would bring you to something down even further than that. A state in itself is regarded as an entity which is sovereign. A Malik. We read in the Quran every time we say what? Maliki yawmiddin. Or in another riwayah we say Maliki yawmiddin. The king of the day what? Of judgment. Isn't it? A person to be a king, they have to be sovereign. Basically they stand on their own. They do not need a sharik, an associate of partners. Association of partners, they don't need that. It's as simple as that. I want you to pay attention. Listen, I'm going to come to the point, you'll understand. Now, if that is the case, can a sovereign entity just exist without being worshipped? No. Would Allah exist for us to know Him if we were not created to worship Him? No. You know that as simple as it is, aqeedah that we study, creed that we study, is for us to know Allah. It starts with what? La ilaha illallah. Isn't it? Man, before the establishment of a modern state, they used to believe in a deity, which is Allah. Christianity led the people. Islam led the people. When people decided at the time and they agreed on this, that their deity, their Lord would be Allah, who was the one that formed the laws? Allah. For those who were Christians, who was the one that formed the laws for them? Same Allah. Even if they believed in Jesus, the son of Mary, who formed the laws for them? Allah. Still, they know that there is a Lord out there. And the Jewish tradition as well falls under that. But then when man was stripped away, removed from the idea of a deity, that which you should worship, which is Allah, there should be an alternative. A human being cannot exist without having an alternative to fill in that void which they are facing at the time. Today, I've mentioned this before and I'm going to mention it again so that we can constantly remember. Children before, they used to have the liberty to go play football. They used to have the liberty to go outside and have friendship. They used to have the liberty to have what? Interconnections with people, communities and tribes. Isn't it? But today they have an alternative. Mobile phones, iPads, televisions. They have what? The internet. When they have that, you enter a house, you see the father is busy, the mother is busy, the child is busy. They have an alternative. Now when the modern state was to be established, it was for a reason. Number one, to divide people that came from the same entity, same background, same lands, to be divided. Number one. And then second of all, provide man an alternative other than that which they believed in, which was Allah. We do believe in Allah. Yes, we do. We believe in Allah, isn't it? Alhamdulillah, our aqeedah is intact. But there is an issue. How much of Allah do we know? If Allah questions us about our salah, would we be able to defend ourselves? Did we study any fiqh to say that I knew this much about my salah? Al-Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah would stand in front of the pulpit and to lead salah on this position, and then a man would question him and tell him, Ya Imam, how could you lead the people? Imam Shafi'i literally told him, look, I'm going to question you for only 60 issues related to salah. You answer me those, then I'll give you the position. You can't answer me those 60 issues related to salah, you don't belong here. And that was the grand Al-Imam Shafi'i. Question is, why would he know 60 masail related to salah? Because they wanted to know what Allah wants from them in order to be worshipped. Isn't it? Now when man was given a nation state required citizens. You and I are part of these nations, whether we like it or not. And because we are part of these nations, we have regarded the nations to become what? Sovereign. They are the ones that lead us. Yes, we say that Allah is the one that leads us. Allah tells us this is halal, this is haram. If someone commits zina today, do we not know the punishment that they have to face? It's a punishable offense. You know that, right? You know that, isn't it? It's a punishable offense. And in the law of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, in Surah An-Nur, there's an entire guideline for you to follow. If a man commits zina, this is the punishment. Right? But then now, you have a state telling you, if someone will commit adultery, it depends on what the state will provide you. Whether it's fine, you can have a premarital affair, it's okay. Because it's fine for them to the law. If you take that person to the court, you wouldn't be able to defend yourself, because that's a fact. The state is the one that determines the laws for you. You do not dictate the terms anymore, which means you are a product of that state. You are a citizen of that state that runs the state. Now, because the state is the Lord, because Wa'il Halaq, he mentions beautifully in his book, he says this: until states became sovereign, they needed citizens who could be guided by the states. And because the state regarded itself as sovereign and to be the Lord and the deity that leads the citizens and man, then they are to be the gods that lead whom? The servants. Which means to say that we are slaves of what? The nation that we are serving. Now, maybe something is sparking in your mind. You might say today, I need to change this. I cannot abide by the law. The answer is, it is impossible to do so. You're going to harm yourself, number one. And second of all, you are literally again going against what? The text of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We mentioned this in the khutbah again. We said that as long as the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that a time will come that Muslims, the ummah, will not be led by the sharia of Allah, the first thing that will be removed from them is judgment and ruling. We cannot make those judgments anymore. It doesn't matter what world you live in. It's over. Game over. But the last of what we have to cling on is salah. And yet at the moment that salah in itself is clinging on a thread. But you need to understand this. If you are a product of the state, which means to say that you are serving the state, your state is your Lord and you have to abide by its laws. What does that do to you and I? The first thing that it does, it incapacitates the mind. When I say incapacitates the mind, it makes your mind unable to think for yourself. Now let's come to the economic side of solving our issues. The reason why we have an ummah that is not producing, whether when it comes to business or producing when it comes to knowledge, is because they are all expecting from their leaders to give them jobs. True or false? That is the largest case that we have. They're expecting their leaders to give them jobs. The leaders themselves are victims of a system that they don't understand, that the system has enslaved them. No matter what leader you have as the supreme leader of this city, and another province, and another area that you have, or the leader of a state around the world, whoever they might be, a king or a queen, bear this in mind. They are the ones that form the laws. And for those who trickle down after them are only abiding by the laws that are provided by these states. Which means they themselves, they are handicapped. They are cut off their legs. Below the knees, they are fallen. Which means to say, you are expecting someone whom themselves, they are vulnerable to give you something that they cannot even afford. You're expecting something from someone who cannot even afford to give it to themselves, let alone you. Because they are serving a system which doesn't even serve them. Now let me tell you the difference between an Islamic system and the current system. These are not my words. These are words that you learn from the scholars. Books of economics that provide the time when there were empires and then now that we have nation states. The fall of the economy for man. The moment money was removed from the essence of gold and silver, everything became a currency. How does a currency work? How does an electric current work? The moment you put the light on, extremely fast does it go for it to light on, isn't it? And money is printed in that manner. That is going against the text of Islam immediately. Because money in Islam is stagnant. It has a certain value. Barter trade was only regarded according to the value of the goods that you give in return. And money in itself was just a receipt of the gold that you owned, if you had any gold. The paper that you hold on to right now was part of gold and silver, nothing else. Which means that money's value did not change and alter like how it works today. 1,000 shillings today, tomorrow is equivalent, after 5 years, is equivalent to 500 shillings, isn't it? You park your money in the bank today, after 5 years, it's as if you only own 500 shillings. But you put in there 1,000 shillings. Why has it lost its value? That's not how the law works. Now, when an Islamic state existed, this is how it worked. The nation state, those who rule the states, and I don't want to mention entities, they are the ones that rule the world today. Each one of us understand from the adults. The adults over here know really well. They love politics so much. They know who are the ones that lead the world today. None of these countries lead the world from the time of colonialism. When you think the colonialists left, they did not just leave, they physically left, but they enslaved the mind. Simply put. So everyone, as they live according to the colony's mindset. That's how they want us to survive. And we believe that that's how we should live. And I'm talking just about the economic aspect. I haven't even mentioned the educational aspect yet. I haven't mentioned that yet. Now, coming back to this, the Islamic State worked like this. The one who led the Ummah, which we could call today the successor, or in other words, simply put, the Khalifa, he did not determine the laws. The Khalifa is only a man set, responsible to fulfill the needs of Allah, the laws of Allah. He does not dictate the Sharia. In fact, he follows laws which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already provided man. Which means to say, he is not the one that sits down and say that this is a law. In fact, the scholars, the ulama, and also those who have learnt, and the ummah at large are the ones that allow what? A Sharia to be enacted. They are the ones that say, okay, this is in accordance to what Allah wants, and this is for the masalih of the people, for the interest of the people. As long as it abides by the Sharia, then that's fine. How did the ulama live? They lived part of a community. Even the Khalifa himself, he lived as part of the community. How did Umar ibn Khattab live? He would sleep under a tree, and the Sahabas would walk around him, and the Tabi'een who came after them, and they had their queries, they would come to him directly. That's how it works. Today you want to access a president, the whole roads have to be closed, several cars have to pass by, there's no position for anyone to even go anywhere. And the citizens whom they are part of the system, they have to go to work, they're late, and they have their salaries reduced from them because of a president. That's how it works. Isn't it? That's a fact. So if you come to the economy, you notice that it was left in the hands of the ummah. They are the ones that traded together. But now that's not the case. This is how it works. As a citizen, you are not regarded as someone that should receive priority. La. This is what you should do. You're supposed to produce. You're supposed to work. You are supposed to serve the nation. Serve the state. And as you serve the state when you work, you have to pay taxes. How much do you pay? 20%, 30%, depending on your salary, 40%. It goes even further. What are you doing? You have to do what? Or be obedient to the state. Economically, that's how it works. And beyond that, the state itself has to take the duty of doing what? Providing you a job. But if you look at the state today and you look at the state of the ummah, there are no jobs that the state is providing. Because they cannot give any jobs. Where are the jobs? How does it work? How did the ummah live yesterday? They expected to attain rizq from their own work. Not wait for someone to tell them there are job openings. That's not how it worked. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he taught us the laws of trade, trade 101. That's what he did. If he worked for Khadija, he didn't work for Khadija as you think. He worked for Khadija to do what? To build the business for a percentage in return. Until Khadija gave him the entire wealth of hers. That's how it worked. But there was no such thing as employment. Now what has this idea, the failing system economically, has led to the ummah today? As the ummah waits and elects a person to literally be the one that saves them from their calamity, the person that comes in, first of all, traps them with the ideas and the false words that they bring forth so that they can receive the votes, and once that happens, they have nothing to give in return even if they try. No matter how sincere they might be, it's impossible for them to serve the ummah at large. There wouldn't be enough job openings to serve everyone who has a need. What would that do to the ummah? Cause them to become handicapped, incapacitated, and literally put them in a position of servitude. What type of servitude? Not with shackles in your hands and legs and feet. Literally, what? Mental servitude. فَهَلْ تَنْتَظِرُونَ إِلَّا فَقْرًا مُنْسِيًا أَوْ غِنًى مُطْغِيًا. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, بَادِرُوا بِالْأَعْمَالِ سَبْعًا. You have to hasten towards good deeds before 7 things do what? They approach you. And they will approach you really fast. Why would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, look at how we have literally denied the text so much? Because our minds, as I said, now go back to what we mentioned. A state is what? Sovereign. I want you to remember that. A state is a god of its own. An entity as a god. We are serving a state. If a state cannot serve us, different from that with Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, then how would it be able to become sovereign enough? Understood? But listen to the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Badiru bil a'mali sab'an. Hasten towards good deed before 7 things approach you. Hey, fast enough. First of all, فَهَلْ تَنْتَظِرُونَ. Are they waiting, or are you waiting? إِلَّا فَقْرًا مُنْسِيًا. To be in a state of poverty, to a level where you forget Allah. Why so? This is what's going to happen. Either one of these. You will find our children literally on the streets. They're either smoking, or they're using leaves, or beyond that they're using something to do what? To get rid of their problems. And maybe they will have what? The wrong company. Because they don't have jobs, there's nothing for them to be served, to do as to serve them. They have an open place in their minds. An open position. What's that? Faragh. Empty space. The moment you have an empty space in your mind, that space would be occupied by the shaitan. That is a fact. Whether we like it or not. Hence the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was told, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ. When you are now free, فَانصَبْ. Go back to Allah. وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. Why would Rasulullah be told these words? And he is the Messenger of Allah. Because Allah knew if you are going to give your mind a faragh, you will start allowing shaitan. You're going to give him the permission to start filling your mind with ideas which will literally make you to feel what? Broken as human being. What you are seeing today is stress, depression. Our ummah is suffering from that. You tell someone, don't use qat, don't smoke, don't have the bad friendship, don't take the company that you have. Give them an alternative. Do they have one? No, they don't. Would you give them something which is better to serve their lives? No, they don't have that. Because this is what has happened. They're depending on something which is dependent itself. But Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is not dependent on anything. لِمَنِ الْمُلْكِ. Allah. لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. Why would Allah say that? Allah will say that وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبْضَتُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ مَطْوِيَّاتٌ بِيَمِينِهِ. This earth which He created, and He made it what? Flat for you and I enough, which could serve us. One day He will literally grab it on His right, or His left, and the heavens that He has literally prepared for us as well, He's going to do what? Wrap it as paper and sheets, and then He's going to hold it on His right hand. And what is He going to say? To whom belong kingdom today? Who does kingdom belong to? Who is sovereign? Who is the one who is independent, whom you forgot as a nation? Lillahi al-wahid al-qahhar. Why would Allah mention these in the Quran? So that us could get out of this heedlessness. Ya ikhwah. For us to solve the problems that we have for our ummah, this is the education they need. To understand that they should not be depending on a leader. Nor should they be depending on anyone who is created. A state that is created by the hands of man, it would continuously remain to be dependent, because it's created by man, whom themselves they are created by the ultimate Lord, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Once you understand that, thing is, what is the solution? Now let's mention the solutions for this and then come to the educational system now. When it comes to rizq, one of the things that we need to understand, for many young ones, I want you to understand this, and this will be emerging between education and economy. How is the educational system within the ummah, and how is the economy at large for the ummah, and how it works today? The modern system is inescapable. You have to agree with it. And that which the ummah had yesterday cannot be revived anymore. But what we are trying to fight for is at least a peaceful death rather than a harsh one. Bear that in mind. It's at least a peaceful death rather than a harsh one. Which means to say, if the Messenger ﷺ said, each one of us would be at a position where we're only clinging on the last knot of Islam, which is salah, so at least we perfect our salah. Which means to say, when you come to your religion itself, it requires knowledge. And the first thing, in order for you to be able to understand your religion, your rizq needs to be fixed. If you cannot fix your rizq, you wouldn't be able to think about your religion. The Messenger ﷺ wouldn't mention the first thing, فَهَلْ تَنْتَظِرُونَ إِلَّا فَقْرًا مُنْسِيًا, poverty that literally makes you forget Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And men have become like this because they've forgotten Allah. They have literally forgotten Allah, because this is what they are forgetting. Sincerely, if you look into the Quran, what does Allah say? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And I did not create man or the jinn kind except that they should worship me. مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ يُطْعِمُونَ. We constantly read these verses, and the people of Tabligh, they keep on repeating the verses left, right and center every now and then, but we do not pay attention to them. If you look at the state of the ummah today, this is what they are forgetting. If Allah is the one that provides rizq, are you supposed to be waiting for a human being to provide you rizq? Answer me that. Please, I'm asking the young ones. If Allah is the one that provides rizq, are you supposed to be waiting for another man to give you rizq? Are you supposed to be waiting for anyone? Where does rizq come from? From whom? Now, did Allah tell you you should sit down and wait for that rizq to come in your hands? Did Allah say so? What is your proof? What is your proof? You cannot utter anything without a text. You have to go back to the Quran and Sunnah. Bear that in mind. And the ulama will teach you that. Is that what Allah told you? If you cannot just sit down and wait for your rizq to come, is there a text for you to prove that Allah told me I have to go out and fetch for my rizq? There is a text. And there's one in the Quran. I will mention only one in the Quran, and there's another one in the Sunnah. I wouldn't mention the one in the Quran first. It's very common. I will mention to you one in the Sunnah which you and I can relate to for the state that we're in right now. In a hadith, the Messenger ﷺ mentioned, I have never in my entire journey mentioned literally a gharib hadith, a strange hadith that people do not know. I've only mentioned a hadith that you and I relate to every day. And you hear this every Jumu'ah or in a muhadara. It's constantly repeated. The Messenger ﷺ says, لو أنكم تتوكلون على الله حق توكله لرزقكم كما يرزق الطير تغدو خماصا وتروح بطانا. Why would he keep this last part of the text, تغدو خماصا وتروح بطانا, at the very end? Have you ever questioned yourself that? He says, لو أنكم, only if you were. Why would he say this? Because the Messenger ﷺ knew that mankind, because of their weakness of the mind, they want to expect that someone serves them. They want to expect that they are spoon-fed everything. But that's not how the deen works. You want to be close to Allah and you're not even praying. You want a good family, you're not even spending time with them. You want to live a good life and there's no contribution of yours that you're giving. There's nothing that you are providing and you're still waiting that Allah's mercy will come. وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى عَمَّتِي كُلَّ امْرِئٍ إِيمَانَهُ كَذَرَّةٍ. That's what you're expecting. That's not how it works, ya ikhwah. This is what the Messenger ﷺ says. لَوْ أَنَّكُمْ تَتَوَكَّلُونَ. If only if you were to depend upon Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, حَقَّ تَوَكُّلِهِ. Hence one of the points that I wrote over here, التوكل الحقيقي على الله تبارك وتعالى. Sincere dependency upon Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. You sincerely depend upon Allah, not the wish-washed one that we have today. Yes, I depend upon Allah and there's no output of yours. That's not how it works. I'll give you this example, and I gave this example to my dear brothers recently. The phenomenon of weekends, Saturday and Sunday, is a false phenomenon built in our minds. There was no such thing as Saturdays and Sundays. A weekend that you say, today is my day to lay back. There was no such thing. It's a modern phenomenon. Did you know that? The Ummah worked 24/7, day and night, for the sake of this religion. Let alone that, for the sake of the Ummah to survive. Do you think the one who led the Ummah as a Khalifa had one day off from the responsibility that they had? Hasha wa kalla. All of the Salatin that came, all of the Khulafa ur-Rashidun that came, they worked day and night, 24 hours, 7 days a week, non-stop, for the sake of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Some of them had 2-3 days consecutively that they would never sleep. Which means to say, they never knew anything that there's a Sunday off. Now let me give you this example. Yes, mashallah, you did your best, you went to work. Now you got a job, but your salary doesn't even pay your rent. Or maybe it pays your rent, but it doesn't even put food on the table enough. Isn't it? You say, I work 6 days a week and 12 hours a day. When I come back home, I am finished. Khalas, it's over. I don't have time for anything. But I wouldn't even tell you work on the rest of the day that you have. But you have a Sunday off. What are you doing with your Sunday? If you're literally really suffering enough that you don't have enough money to put food on the table, you do not have enough money to pay your rent properly, your life is very difficult, isn't it? How do you take a Sunday off? You're not hungry enough. ما وجد هذا في الإسلام أصلا. This never existed in Islam. That's what you need to know. And tawakkul upon Allah is that. Tawakkul upon Allah is when Allah literally sees you working day and night, suffering for the sake of building your own livelihood. Allah will literally open the doors for you. And the harder it gets, the more tougher you work. You hold on to that path. Because وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. We have literally tested those before you. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. So that Allah can distinguish between the ones who are truthful and the ones who are not truthful. That's something that you need to understand. You do not have any excuse, no matter how broken the system might be. But you're a Muslim. Allah is the one that provides you rizq, isn't it? Where do you stand? For the ummah to say that it has rotten, it is our responsibility. I will come to the tarbiyah aspect, but wait a little bit. Now the hadith goes as, لَرَزَقَكُمْ كَمَا يَرْزُقُ الطَّيْرِ. Allah says, I will surely, Allah would have surely, it's a promise. And Allah, وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقًّا. Allah's wa'd promise is never going to be false. I could tell you this, ask your parents, ask your grandparents. Your grandparents lived a life that literally all they had were little farms, and maybe they lived in a hut. Or maybe a house that was theirs. But that farm, they depended upon it and they left it in the hands of Allah. Wallahi, they did not have water wells and water pumps to water their farms. But because they depended on Allah and knew that Allah is the one that is the provider, they only did their part, and Allah made sure that the crops will produce fruits so that they could eat. They would have wheat, maize, rice, tomatoes, what? Potatoes. All sorts of food, and then they will eat from that. Wallahi al-azim. Ask your parents. Why did they not sleep a day with hunger? Why didn't a day pass and they slept with hunger? Because they did their part. And they knew what rizq meant. They depended upon Allah and Allah gave it to them. But not this ummah right now. This ummah has failed to depend upon Allah. You elect a person that would govern your problems. You expect that person to give you the openings, and the next person, the next moment that you see, they fail you. And you say that it's the failure of our system. Yes, it's the failure of the system, but it's your failure as well. Because you did not depend upon Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You failed. What does he say? تَغْدُو خِمَاصًا وَتَرُوحُ بِطَانًا. Even the little bird who does not have a mind, and is very small in size, they leave their nest. They go and search for food. They might collect one worm or two worms because that's what they eat. And they come with it to their nest. If they have children and feed their children and feed themselves, they sleep with a full stomach. Is their problem cured or not? Economically, yes. For the ummah to have its economic problems to be solved, you need to have that full dependence upon Allah. Now another issue when it comes to rizq and depending upon Allah. We understand the concept of rizq in the most false manner, in a very modern term. Why so? You look at social media, you look at how people live, and this is how you expect it to be. You expect it to be like, this person is driving a nice car, they have a few houses, or at least they own a house, and you want to be in that position. You haven't even solved your own crisis that you have right now. Did you forget another educational issue that people are forgetting? We need to give education to our children. I'll come to the tarbiyah aspect so we can finish. We don't have enough time. Did you forget that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, as long as He said that He promises that everyone would receive their rizq, did He not say, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ? That Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, upon everything He does what? He has an appointed time for it. He has already appointed its time for it. Did you forget that? He has already had everything appointed according to his schedule, where it belongs and how much one would have. Why would Allah mention Himself in the Quran as Al-Qistu and Al-Adlu? The differences are, I did not mention this in a khutbah before, but I'll mention it for you here. Al-Adlu means Allah is Adil to everyone, just to everyone. Everyone would eat, everyone would drink, everyone would sleep, everyone would survive. That's what it is. But when Allah said Al-Qistu, Huwa Al-Qistu, why would He mention this? He mentioned this for a reason. Al-Qistu means your share that Allah has literally assigned for you, that is what belongs to you. It wouldn't be similar to the other one. But He did promise you that He will take care of you. What we do not understand is that we have a khalal in our aqeedah. That's the honest truth. Our aqeedah is a khalal. And because our aqeedah is a khalal, our dependence upon Allah will not be intact. Because we do not have that shukr to say that I can say, Alhamdulillah, I have this. This is what Allah prepared for me. What you have in your mind is that, why do I not have enough? I want to live like them. I want to be like them. The modern day and age is an age of producing, manufacturing and mass production. That's what it's about. 100 years ago, before the Industrial Revolution, people only used to expect that which they would be able to receive from the crops and what the earth would produce for them. Nothing beyond that. But when man said that this phenomena that we have and this type of lifestyle that we have cannot serve us, especially when an empire exists such as the Islamic Empire, because they were smart in trade. You can see in the Arab world how much of geniuses they are when it comes to trade. They are very good at trade. It is natural within us because we depend upon Allah. You do not wait for someone to serve you. You serve yourself. And in trade there is barakah. Allah promised that and the Messenger of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam promised that. Al-bay'u barakah. Trade is barakah. It's full of blessings. Al-barakatu hiya an-nama'u wa ziyada. It's an increase and also what? Blessings in it. That's what it means. That's what you need to understand. Men, majority of them or all of them were tradesmen. That's how they lived. That's how they survived. Because they knew as long as Allah is the one that provides, my duty is to do my job, my part. To whom am I leaving the rizq in their hands for me? That's what they understood. Now because we failed for this, it is impossible for us to save this issue that we have. What you need to understand is that when man said, this does not serve us, and we are failing as who we are, they said the first thing that we need is make people lose hope in the idea of a deity and then give them an alternative. Hence you had all of these revolutions, French Revolution, Industrial Revolution, colonialism, and all of these. Why so? Plunge, snatch, take away, dig, explore. Because the Renaissance era is what came with the idea of what? Exploring the world. And when man started exploring the world, they stumbled upon things that they were not able to hold on to their hearts. Once you cannot hold on to your greed, you will commit every atrocity in order to fill that greed in. And shaitan, Iblis, he allowed his greed to do what? To take the best of him, to overcome him. Hence when he was told to do sujood upon Adam alayhi salam, he failed. And he promised that as long as he has failed, he's going to make sure that every one of the servants of Allah, which is you and I, we are going to fail Allah completely. And the greatest of what shaitan wants is to make us forget Allah, which is the key element of aqeedah. And because of this, the first thing that shaitan did is what? Strip us away from knowledge. And once we are stripped away from knowledge, we fall into servitude. Anything we are told is exactly what we follow. And how did he accomplish this? By stripping, first of all, from the ummah leadership, from stripping from the ummah communities. And now shaitan is trying to do what? Strip from the ummah families. Women don't want to be women anymore. They don't want to be married. Men don't want to take their responsibilities and be men and produce, mashallah, children and progenies to come. That is a fact. And that's a promise of shaitan. Bear that in mind. Al-arzaqu biyadillah. You need to have the contentment in your hand. That's the first key element. If you want to solve your economic issues or your financial issues, be grateful to Allah first. Have satisfaction. Say to Allah, Allahumma rzuqni al-qana'ah. Oh Allah, provide me qana'ah, satisfaction. If you do not ask Allah for this, you're always going to be in the position of the modern man. The modern man is all about more and more and more. Exactly what the modern state wants. The modern states want you to make more so the state can make more. You make £50,000, you have to pay 50% in tax. You make 100,000, you pay 60% in tax. Who are you serving? Yourself or are you serving your state? Let me tell you, when there was an Islamic financial institution that existed at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's financial institution, Rasulullah's institution that he taught us, there's no such thing as taxations. There was only zakah, and the threshold of zakah was only 2.5. Only if you pass a year. Look at how just the system was. But then the system tells you, you should not be keeping money in the bank. You have to make sure that you invest your wealth. You should not be keeping money. Invest your money so you make more, serve more. Make more, serve more. Because the more money you have, the more you can employ. The more money you have, the more you can serve. The more money you have, the more you can alleviate the ummah. That is the purpose. It's about growth and helping the ummah. But when a selfish system came, the more money you have, the more it goes to the state. The more money you have, the more it goes to the state. Why don't you take that financial ability in your own hands? Ask yourself that. But because of lack of education, this is what has happened. Now come to the education part, and then we look at the tarbiyah, how much we have failed. Education-wise, the reason why our children today, we will leave this pulpit here, and what I have said over here, including myself right now, it would be extremely difficult for them to understand the concept of rizq, is because the concept of understanding ultimate submission to Allah is literally and utterly removed from their hearts. They are far away from that. We did mention that we do pray, sah? We fast, we do zakah, we give zakah, we go to hajj, we say la ilaha illallah, but we don't live like that. That's a fact. We do not live like that. Because how do we determine our movements? Would a child today grow up to say that I saw my father, he was an honest man and he earned an honest living and he tried to serve Islam as much as he could, let alone Islam? If they don't understand this concept, and I'm not going to tell a parent, I'm not going to tell you a parent that is a scholar, I'm going to tell you a common parent, a very simple parent. This child will grow up to see a father or a mother in the household, let alone this parent. They go to salah, yes, but their standards of living, they're non-Islamic. How much of the parents take their children to beaches where there's a lot of haram happening? How much of the parents allow their children to hang out with the wrong crowd and they do not even pay attention to that? How much of parents do not have control of their own children for them to know that this is what my child is doing? Majority of the parents don't do that. And because of this, we would always have a failing ummah. That's how it's going to work. Because the community cannot serve. The community that we have right now is broken to the core. Wallahi al-azim. Broken to the core. You do not hold on to your child, the friend that they will have is a man who is intoxicated. You cannot hold on to your daughter. There would be a man enough outside there to seduce them, and they will literally go with them. And this is happening in our households. The parents don't know. And this is happening because of what? These parents in the house, they do not even stand with a little bit of Islam. Simply put, when did you see your father at least reading Quran and trying to understand it? Majority of households don't have that. And when I say father, I'm including mothers. I'm not saying fathers alone. I'm including mothers. I might mention one parent. It might be the paternal parent, or maybe the maternal guardian, but they're all inclusive. It's all inclusive. Bear that in mind. When did you see your father trying to do adhkar? When did you see your father, to make it even worse, having time with the children or with you and sit down with you and tell you, my son or my daughter, there is Allah out there, there is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You give them wa'adh so that constantly they could be reminded of Allah. I'm not trying to tell you go study in the books. I'm trying to tell you a lifestyle. Where did you see a father doing that? The father himself doesn't even have time for himself, let alone for the family. Because they decided to be in that state. What does the father want? More money, more buildings, nice car, built for the world, because he wants to compete with another person. And because they want to compete and they have forgotten the concept of rizq, this progeny is left behind. This generation that is coming is left behind. The generations are victims of your own doings. Bear that in mind, parents. Oh, parents, the generation that are coming are victims of your own doings. You are the one who are taking away from them the deserving of education. And the education the ummah needs today is not the education in institutions and colleges. The first education the ummah requires today is at least understanding Allah. When the ummah would understand Allah, the next thing that they need is knowledge to serve Allah. Comes in knowledge. If you go today to the modern education, this is how it works. The modern education has decided to bring in a term known as secular knowledge. Has any one of you heard of secular knowledge? You've heard of the term secular knowledge, right? If you've heard of the term secular knowledge, don't shy away. It's a fact. I've heard that. Have you heard of the term secular knowledge? You could raise your hand up. What if I tell you secular knowledge is just a modern phenomenon as well? Because there was no such thing as secular knowledge. That's how you are stripped off from your rizq. Why is it regarded as secular knowledge and this other knowledge is regarded as godly knowledge? Let's take children to madrasa and that's it. They go learn Quran and that's it. It's because we fail to understand that there is no such thing as secular knowledge. It is not secular knowledge. All of the knowledge that you put together all comes from Allah. I'll give you a simple example of engineering. Look at this. لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُولَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وأنزلنا معهم الكتاب والميزان ليقوم الناس بالقسط وأنزلنا الحديد فيه بأس شديد ومنافع للناس. What did Allah say? وأنزلنا الحديد فيه بأس شديد ومنافع للناس. And we brought down from the heavens, what is it? Hadid, metal. In it, there's a lot of harm, but at the same time, there's benefits for the ummah, a lot of benefits. What do you use metal for? Buildings. What do you use metal for? The internet. What do you use metal for? Technology. What do you use metal for? Your day-to-day life, isn't it? If you use metal for all of that, where does metal come from? Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Why does He want you to know that He brought metal down for you to serve it? So it can serve you. It has benefit for you so that you understand the knowledge that you attain in order for you to become an engineer, a programmer, or whatever it might be that you have to use metal is not secular. It belongs to Allah. When the ummah existed at the time, this is how it worked. An engineer was part of the ummah. A lawyer was part of the ummah. A alim was part of the ummah. And at the same time, a tradesman was part of the ummah. All of them, they lived لِمُرَاعَاتِ حُدُودِ اللَّهِ. They lived to ensure that the boundaries of Allah were not transgressed. That's what they did. Hence you find, if you go back today, I promise you, go back to Istanbul. Look at the main masjid that you go there today. The greatest masjid that you will see. Does anyone know its name? Come on. Does anyone know its name? Has anyone gone to the Blue Mosque? The neighboring mosque? Huh? You've heard about it. Go look at the architecture that's in the masjid. Don't go there and say, MashaAllah, this building is amazing. No. Look at the architecture in the masjid. When you siru fil ardi fanzuru, that's what Allah said. Don't go and march around the earth and say, MashaAllah, I'm astonished with what I see. You go and learn. You walk around the earth and learn, ikhwa. Don't go around the earth and just say, this is what I saw. You go and learn. Look at the architecture. Look at how magnificent it was. It's us that did that. Look at the remnants that existed there. Who did it? It's us that did that. That tells you something. There were engineers. There were architects. There were people that did the planning of the what? Of the foundation and the buildings. But they were all part of the ummah. So there was no such thing as secular knowledge. The reason why it is called secular is so that it can be secluded from man, so that they realize that this is not part of the deen. And because it's not part of the deen, then what they are doing, they're going to learn to attain this knowledge so they can serve the state. That's why. But when you look at it today, you cannot look at it and say, oh, I'm going to use this to serve my life, because serving your life is part of ibadah. Did you forget that? You going out to attain rizq is ibadah. That's what Tawheed teaches you. Aqidah teaches you that. Understanding Allah and then having knowledge does what? Teaches you that serving myself is ibadah. Serving my family is ibadah. So whatever knowledge I have, as long as I'm serving the ummah, is ibadah. Because it's about selflessness and contribution, not about selfishness and stinginess. It's not about that. It's far beyond that. So when you go to school and study, don't look at your knowledge and say, I'm studying chemistry and biology. This is secular. It's not secular. It's part of you. You have to understand that. There are so many things which I don't want to mention over here, which I've mentioned before, inshallah. You can go look at the previous classes and you'll be able to learn from that. How rich is the knowledge of Islam? Even when it comes to architecturing and that, the inventor, I said this in the khutbah, the inventor of a camera was a Muslim. The inventor of algebra was a Muslim. The inventor of chemistry was a Muslim. Bear that in mind. Ibn Battuta, or Ibn Rushd, Al-Hafid, one of the greatest Maliki scholar. Do you know who he was? He was a great pharmacist and a surgeon. For 400 years, the European nation has been studying him in and out so they can learn the tactics of medicine and how to become a surgeon. This is your fellow Muslim. Ikhwat al-kiram. You question yourself and tell yourself today, I'm just going to become a doctor and that's it. That's not how it worked. That's not how it worked. Whatever you achieved, you took it and you served your ummah. If someone comes to you today and you're a doctor, if you have a modern ideology, you would say, I established this firm, this place, so that I can serve more money. That's what it is. But you wouldn't have the idea when someone comes to you, they do not have enough money, they're poor, or maybe you know they have a problem, they can't pay you now, they can pay you tomorrow, to serve them. Because you're thinking, the cost is about 100,000 shillings, they only have 20,000. How do I serve them? It doesn't cover my bills. Walk away. That's how it is. You did not learn medicine for the sake of serving the people, but in fact you learned medicine for the sake of doing what? Serving the nation. This state that you are serving cannot serve you, but the one that you could serve, Allah, is the one that can serve you. Ikhwa, I want to conclude over here, but I would conclude with this. Dear brothers and sisters, dear parents, you have to hold on to the reins of your children. Provide them education. There's no such thing as secular knowledge and madrasa knowledge. No. Not everyone is mu'ahal liyakuna aliman. Not everyone would suffice to become a scholar in the Sharia. But also not everyone who can be a scholar would suffice to become a tradesman, nor a doctor or beyond. Every one of them, every one of us have abilities that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has given us. You need to understand that. We have two types of people that are doing da'wah. I want you to take this as actionable steps which parents can take. There are those who do da'wah like myself. I can sit here and rant for 2 hours and it will never end. This is my capability. And I'm in a very difficult position because I am of those Allah is literally watching me. لِمَ تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. Why are you going to utter that which you do not do? Bear that in mind. But then you have a da'i samit, a da'i that is silent. A silent da'i is you and the rest of those who are out there. Because you are the majority, not the ones that preach by their tongues. As long as you are the majority, parents, you need to do da'wah to your family first. How do you do da'wah? Do you need to be a scholar? No. You have to be living as an embodiment of Islam. So your children can follow from you. Read Quran so they can read. Learn about your deen so they can learn. You become a best version of yourself so they can be a best version of you. And never say that because you have wasted your time and there's nothing that your children will take from you. Khalid ibn al-Walid, Umar ibn al-Khattab, who else? Uthman ibn Affan. I don't want to mention them. I would want to mention some other Sahabas that committed a lot of tyranny to the Muslims. Al-Wahshi and far and beyond. All of these Sahabas that I've mentioned to you, isn't it Khalid the one that defeated the Muslim in the battle of what? Uhud? Isn't it? But then Allah altered the course of his life. From his progenies came Rijal, men. All you need to do is just alter yourself. Change yourself. Change the course of your life right now. Isn't it Umar ibn Khattab that said, I'm leaving to go and murder Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And then he went there and became a Muslim. Once he became a Muslim, Allah changed the course of his life. Do you know the Maliki madhab is built upon what madhab? Umar ibn Khattab. Allahu Akbar. Abdullah ibn Umar. Bear that in mind. These were men that yesterday, one day, they were willing to destroy Islam. And then what happened to them? When they followed Islam, they realized that this was the path. And because of that, Allah from them brought the best of nation. You change, the ummah will change. You don't change, these young ones wouldn't change. And once you are capable of doing that, give your children alternatives. And the alternative you could give them, first of all, is knowledge. Let them learn about Allah. And second of all, let them learn about earning for themselves. Don't enslave them with a system that you know cannot serve them. There's something called al-iktifa'u dhati. Hopefully you conclude with this. This is something which I want to mention today, because perhaps it's the last lecture for today, inshallah, until we meet again. Al-iktifa'u dhati, I want you to pay attention to this. Al-iktifa'u dhati means to be able to serve yourself and attain something. If you have a job, you are still trapped. I promise you. That's the honest truth. If you have a boss that literally does command you left and right and center, you are trapped. Now understand, I'm going to come to a point. When I say employment, I say the type of employments you went and attained a degree, and once you've attained a degree, you go look for a job, and once you have it, the job is the one that serves your income. But there's a difference between a job and a skill. Bear this in mind. There's a difference between a job and a what? A skill. The skill that you attain is going to serve you for the rest of your life. You can be a cameraman. You can be an editor. You can be a programmer. You can be an engineer. You can be a tradesman. You can be a doctor. You can be a pharmacist. You can be a alim. You can be a mudarris, you can be a da'i. But because you have that skill and you have no one closing you, locking you down, all you can do is come up with a termly contract. You say, okay, I have a termly contract, you give me what I want, I give you what you want, once it's finished, that's it. But that person takes you in because of your skill that you have. Understood? Because of the skill that you have. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say the employment that you're holding on to, as long as we have a broken economic system, every time it goes through recession, the entire world at the moment is going through recession, for those who follow economics. And because it's going through recession, it's not far enough until people start losing their jobs. What would you have to put on the table next? You start worrying, isn't it? Now your faith in Allah comes in first. Do you believe in Allah? Do you know that Allah provides you rizq? What is your job to do? We said it here. You go serve yourself as much as you could earn for yourself. So what should you have as a Muslim? Something that's bringing you income on the side. So that if your mainstream, your stream income there, your main income stream that you have from your job fails, at least you have something to float onto. So that when you go to your job as well, you're proud enough of what you are doing. Not because you're going there because you don't like it. Because the modern man has to work like this. You do the job whether you like it or not. It's about production. Not doing something sincerely for the sake of ikhlas. No. Not for the sake of sincerity. Produce, you like it, you dislike it, it doesn't matter. It's inhumane. It's animalistic. Wallahi al-azim. The system out there is not there to serve you. You need to do this. Have something on the side. Do a part-time job, even if it's a full-time job. But you combine the two strengths, you'll be able to live a happy life. No one will be able to dictate your terms. Why does Islam want this for you? So that when you sincerely worship Allah, you would worship Allah with your heart, wholeheartedly. Because Allahu la yuridu ghayrah. Allah doesn't want any association with anything. Allah doesn't want the Muslim ummah to be weakened, let alone being weak. He doesn't want the ummah to be weakened. But if we decide to be weakened, this is exactly what you get. Ikhwat al-kiram, parents, help your children to grow so the generations will change. And children, grow up to learn, knowing that you're not learning any secular knowledge. In fact, you're learning knowledge that could serve you for the long term. But I advise the young ones, seek other skills to change your life. And adults, parents, ensure that you do this, provide them education. The ummah would only change that way. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum.
Jijini Mombasa chini ya kauli mbiu ya Knowledge and Ummah Building Our Future. Ataanza kutoa muhadhara wa live podcast siku ya Alhamis ya tarehe 15 ya Februari katika studio za Alhajara. Siku ya Ijumaa ya tarehe 16, Sheikh Mustafa atatoa hutuba ya Ijumaa katika msikiti wa Masjid Yusuf Migadini kule. Na baada al-Maghrib, muhadhiri wetu atatoa darsa katika msikiti wa Huda Spaki. Siku ya Jumamosi ya tarehe 17, usipitwe, kwani Sheikh Mustafa Mahmoud atakuwa na maongezi na wanafunzi wa shule ya upili ya Sheikh Khalifa bin Zaid Al-Nahyani kuanzia saa 1 usiku. Kumbuka, ziara hii ya muhadhiri wa kimataifa nchini Kenya imedhaminiwa na runinga yako pendwa ya Alhajar, na unaweza ifuatilia ziara hii bila kupitwa kwa mada zote kemkem kupitia mitandao yetu ya kijamii. Usipitwe na fursa hii adhimu. Wito, mwaliko kwa Waislamu wote. Yule muhadhiri wa kimataifa kutoka jijini Birmingham, Uingereza, ameanza ziara yake rasmi jijini Mombasa chini ya kauli mbiu ya Knowledge and Ummah Building Our Future. Ataanza kutoa muhadhara wa live podcast siku ya Alhamis ya tarehe 15 ya Februari katika studio za Alhajara. Siku ya Ijumaa ya tarehe 16, Sheikh Mustafa atatoa hutuba ya Ijumaa katika msikiti wa Masjid Yusuf Migadini kule. Na baada al-Maghrib, muhadhiri wetu atatoa darsa katika msikiti wa Huda Spaki. Siku ya Jumamosi ya tarehe 17, usipitwe, kwani Sheikh Mustafa Mahmoud atakuwa na maongezi na wanafunzi wa shule ya upili ya Sheikh Khalifa bin Zaid Al-Nahyani kuanzia saa 1 usiku. Kumbuka, ziara hii ya muhadhiri wa kimataifa nchini Kenya imedhaminiwa na runinga yako pendwa ya Alhajar, na unaweza ifuatilia ziara hii bila kupitwa kwa mada zote kemkem kupitia